Welcome to another video from Roland Mösel, founder of planetary engineering group Earth. Dynamics of goals and decisions. Let's start with the car industry. In 1950, somebody was so concerned about the air quality in Los Angeles that he invented the catalytic converter. But there had been only leaded gasoline at this time, so it was not usable for cars because the catalytic converter becomes destroyed by lead. So he had only a small niche market, forklifts for indoor usage, and they had been special delivered with unleaded gasoline. Only 25 years later, the catalytic converter becomes a registration requirement in the United States. Even in Germany, 10 years later, all the German car industry wailed around. This would be the end. It's now 36 years later, and they have survived it. But this goal to make air more clean, to make exhaust gases more clean, had decisions to make it even more clean, more drastic exhaust gas norms, more drastic clean air laws. And they thought all the time, the car industry can do it. They have such a big budget for research and development, they sure can do it. And 2015, the big surprise, they did not do it, the big diesel scandal. And this created other decisions. In Norway, they ban internal combustion engine cars by 2025. No new registration possible. And other countries will follow. And so, about 2040, nearly no country will allow the new registration of internal combustion engine cars. Now let's look at the house industry. There are also dynamics of goals and decisions, and this started 1992 at the United Nations Environment Conference in Rio. And big breakthrough 2015 in Paris. In Paris 2015, they made the decision that all houses has to obey the new building standard ClimateProtectionSuperiorityHouse. They didn't know it that they decide this. I also did not know it, but it is like with the catalysator. The catalysator was the end of the internal combustion engine car because they wanted more and more clean exhaust gases, and at the end they said, oh, no exhaust gases at all, zero exhaust gases. And with this decision in Paris 2015, they made the building standard ClimateProtectionSuperiorityHouse for some years later. Let's look at a typical house and a typical car in Germany 1970. It was before the great victory of the diesel engine. Most cars had gasoline engine and they had been real gasoline guzzlers. And so we calculate 2,000 liters of fuel oil, 2,000 liters of gasoline, 4,000 kilowatt hours of electricity, and this makes 14 tons of CO2 emissions. 30 years later, most people in Germany changed to diesel engine cars and they made thermal insulation in the house, so it's only 1,000 liters of fuel oil, 1,400 liters of diesel, and this reduced the emission to 10 tons CO2. There had been also some special houses, so-called passive houses, and they looked only on the energy for heating the house. This was greatly reduced, but overall it was only a reduction to 7 tons of CO2. Here I recommend that you would look at the video General Requirements for Climate Protection Superiority Houses, and now look in the year 2030 at the smallest Climate Protection Superiority House, our first GEMINI Next Generation house. With a garage together, 13,000 kilowatt hours of electricity production. 7,500 kilowatt hours are for own usage, and this includes charging the electric car for 20,000 kilometers a year. So remaining are 22,500 kilowatt hours of electricity for sale. And it says its usual calculation that 1 kilowatt hour electricity from renewable sources replaces 750 grams of CO2 what would be produced at fossil energy production. So we have about 17 tons of emission avoidance. Let's look at the market phases of electric cars. First, there was the Tesla Roadster. Great car, oh great, but no subsidies for electric cars at all. Later is the second phase. Purchase premiums for electric cars. Gradual onset of disadvantages for cars with internal combustion engines. Tolls or driving bans in inner cities and other sensitive areas. And later, and this starts in Norway 2025, registration ban for cars with combustion engines. Increasingly severe disadvantages for cars with internal combustion engines, higher vehicle tax, stricter inspections for compliance with the exhaust emission standard, noise traps. When your car is too loud and you go to a noise trap, you have to pay a penalty for being too loud. Tolls for or driving bans in inner cities and other sensitive areas. These three phases translates at the climate protection superiority houses like this. First, GEMINI next generation settlements preferable in areas with low land price. When land is 1,000 euro per square meter, you only optimize for as much living room as possible on this ground, but these houses are more optimized for as much electricity production per square meter of ground. Then the second phase, the purchase premiums, is here land for energy. Newly dedicated cheap building land on which only climate protection superiority houses may be built. The double strike of governments to stop the housing cost explosion hard and to fulfill the commitments made at COP21 in Paris 2015. In the third phase, construction ban on houses that are not certified as climate protection superiority houses. Property tax is based on the balance of energy production and consumption of a house. Drones check exhaust fumes from old heating systems, strict penalties for non-compliance. We have to get out of oil, coal, biofuels, natural gas and uranium. As much as possible should our houses contribute. What to expect from the three phases of market in Germany and worldwide. In Germany, phase 1, I expect about 2,000 GEMINI next generation houses per year and worldwide 20,000. In phase 2, 200,000 climate protection superiority houses in Germany. They want to make the change to renewable energy with this, because 200,000 houses will be about 10 gigawatt photovoltaic per year. And hopefully we have a market share of 75% and worldwide 10 million houses, and hopefully we have 6 million of it. And phase 3, building regulation climate protection superiority houses, the sales go up in Germany for 800,000 climate protection superiority houses and worldwide 80 million. Let's hope we hold a market share of 25% on it. Let's look at phase 1 in Germany. In Germany, 4.8 million relocations take place every year. If only 0.1% of these relocations end up in a GEMINI next generation house, this would already be more than 3 times as much as the current market leader of prefabricated houses achieves. This industry is focused on the richest 5% of the population. We will prove our ability to sell to the richest 95% of the population. Through COVID-19, online work has greatly increased in popularity regardless of location. Deserted areas with low land prices suddenly become interesting target areas. Let's make a price example. You rent an apartment. You pay rent, operating costs, electricity bill, and fuel for the car. Now let's buy a GEMINI next generation house. Now you pay loan installment for house and property. You have also to pay water, sewer, garbage fees and home insurance, and you get money for electricity sales. The pension shock. People have good salary and have no problem to pay rent, operating costs, electricity and fuel for the car. And then they reach pension age. And suddenly their income drops to 48% of their salary. And now they have a big problem. What is the solution? Buy a GEMINI next generation house. The already mentioned advantages apply, but additional, you could persuade your children, look, when I am in a rented apartment, you get nothing when I die. But when I buy this house and you pay a little bit for it extra, when I die, you get the house. It is not a great proposal. I already know cases where this is done with conventional houses, but the advantages with such a house is much greater to make a trick like this. And the biggest trick for a big headline in the most read German boulevard newspaper, Hartz IV. Hartz IV is something you get as a needy when you cannot get anything else of money. You get Hartz IV. It's the lowest of what you can get. Hartz IV couple pays off grandson super house. Is Hartz IV far too high? How to do it? Oh, this couple have adult children, and these children make a GEMINI next generation house. And then they make a contract for rent and go with this contract for rent to the Hartz IV office. And when this contract complies with all the Hartz IV rules for maximum rent, maximum housing costs, maximum size, and so on, the Hartz IV office has to pay the rent for the house. And some years later, okay, it's unavoidable, they die, and now they have paid off for their grandchildren a house. Great. Large prefabricated house companies spend up to 50% of their turnover on the distribution and advertising. The quality and usefulness of a product can be determined by the percentage of the turnover spent on advertising and distribution. The smaller, the better. Headlines like this will be only a small part of our extensive public relations strategy, which we will show only to serious investors. If you are not a serious investor, wait some years, you will see how it works. This is Urstein hydropower plant near Salzburg on the Salzburg River. 120 gigawatt hours of electricity yearly production, and the advertising tells, oh, this hydropower plant produces enough for 35,000 households. But when I go back to my home, I come along this cement production, and this cement production belongs to the energy-intensive industry. They produce 500,000 tons of cement a year, and they use up 110 gigawatt hours of electricity, nearly the full production of power plant Urstein, and additional 400 gigawatt hours of high-temperature process heat. Let's imagine such a cement production in a sunny country. We could make all of this with 2,200 houses in a workers' settlement, all the electricity production to run this cement production. And additional, with 10,200 of such houses, we could even make the electricity production and the process heat production together. As I started 1991 with the GEMINI inhabited solar power plant, the first generation of the GEMINI house, I tried to make many contacts, and one of these contacts sent me a book, Living Amidst Nature. It is from the famous Swarovski industrial. It's the glass and jewelry industry in Tyrol, Austria. And he wrote this book about all the advantages of such living in the green, living amidst nature, and happy workers make good products, are very satisfied with their workplace, and it's also very family friendly. Additional to all these advantages, there are with GEMINI Next Generation houses 3 additional advantages. First, can also supply energy-intensive industry. Second, several tons of fruits and vegetables per house per year in hot, dry areas such as Jordan, using recycled grey water from the house for aeroponics. And third, it is the cheapest solution for certified, highly motivated employees and energy supply for the company. Here the car registration statistic for electric cars and plug-in hybrid cars in Norway. Norway is a small country with only 0.07% of world population. But with this action, they had huge influence on policymakers worldwide to lead to the registration ban of internal combustion engine cars, to promote the change to electric cars. We will find our Norway, our country which will lead the change to market phase 2 and market phase 3. And this is necessary to fulfill our mission statement. Our mission statement is planet renovation back to 350 ppm CO2. We contribute house by house. This was another video from Roland Mösel, founder of Planetary Engineering Group Earth, and as always, like, comment, subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I make my next video.